My name is Amaris. I am 35 years old. The airplane smells old and tired, like it has been flying for a very long time and never had fresh air. I have been sitting in this tiny hard seat for 12 hours, flying from Seattle to Aspen. The engines make a soft, constant humming sound, like a giant insect buzzing in my ears. My back hurts so much that it feels like it is made of bricks. My legs are cramped, folded in a small space where they do not want to fit. My eyes are gritty and sore because I have not slept enough. But underneath all the tiredness and pain, a small, buzzing, hopeful feeling flutters in my chest. It is nervous, excited energy. Before I continue further, don't forget to subscribe and join the awesome community. Drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what you think of the story. I have something very precious in my bag. It is a small velvet-lined box. Inside it is a sapphire necklace that belonged to our mom. It is on a delicate silver chain. This is not just a pretty necklace. It is a memory of our mother, and I am taking it to give to my little sister Leora as a wedding gift. Fina, my little sister, is beautiful, full of life, and sometimes very frustrating. Her wedding is tomorrow. It is supposed to be magical, like a fairy tale at a fancy mountain resort. I am the one who paid for it. I, her older sister, who is always careful about money, somehow managed to pay for the whole wedding. Cost $50,000. That is a lot of money. I worked so hard to get that money. I did freelance graphic design work, staring at my computer screen until my eyes blurred. I stayed up late many nights and gave up all my weekends and free time. My apartment is small, just a cozy shoebox, and I barely make enough money to pay the rent. My last vacation was a trip to the dentist. But I wanted Fina to have her dream wedding, and that mattered more than anything. I leaned my head against the cold window of the plane and watched the clouds drift by. Things have always been this way between Fina and me. When our mom got sick, I was the one holding her hand and taking her to appointments. Fina was the one who could make mom laugh, even when she was in pain. When mom passed away, I was only 19 and Fina was only 14. In the quiet, cold hospital room, I made a promise to mom even though she could not hear me. I will take care of her, I whispered, my voice full of tears. I will always take care of Fina. That promise became the most important thing in my life. It was a heavy promise, but I carried it because I loved my little sister. Fina had always been able to charm people. She had a way of getting what she wanted. When she wanted a fancy dress for prom, she cried and I gave her money from my college savings. When she wrecked her first car, she said it wasn't her fault and I co-signed a loan for a new one. I was always her safety net. I never questioned it. I promised myself I would always be there. But lately things felt strange. As the wedding got closer, Fina became distant. Our phone calls, which used to be long and full of stories, were now short and cold. She would just send texts about the caterer or the flowers with no warmth or laughter. When I asked about details, she was vague. Don't worry about it, Amaris, she said. Just get yourself to the resort. Everything's handled. A small knot of worry grew in my stomach, but I pushed it down. It was her big day. I could not ruin it by worrying too much. The plane began to land. The snowy mountains of Aspen rose to meet us. I clutched my bag tightly. The little velvet box felt heavier than ever. Soon I would see my sister and give her mom's necklace. I told myself everything would be fine. Family always shows up for each other. The taxi ride from the airport to the resort felt like stepping into another world. The mountain air was crisp and cold, shocking after the stuffy airplane. The view of the mountains was breathtaking. The resort, called the St. Regis, was huge. It was made of wood and stone and looked like a giant castle sitting against the snowy slopes. People in crisp uniforms hurried to open car doors. Women in shiny designer ski clothes floated through the lobby like they were in a movie. My heart felt proud but also a little dizzy. My hard work has made this possible. I had booked the cheapest room I could, and after a quick shower and change of clothes, I went to the private wing of the resort where the rehearsal dinner and pre-wedding party were happening. My heart hammered in my chest. Fina's last text said, "Party at the Aspen Overlook Terrace. See you there." I followed the shiny signs through a maze of hallways until I reached a set of big oak doors. A tall man in a black suit stood there holding a clipboard. Next to him, a young woman with a tight smile and an earpiece was checking names. I could hear the soft hum of people talking and the gentle clinking of glasses from inside. "Hi," I said, smiling. "I'm here for Leora and Kaylin's wedding party. I'm Amaris, the bride's sister," I added, hoping for a warm smile. I expected them to recognize me, but they didn't. The woman looked at her clipboard and frowned. She flipped the page and looked again. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry. You are not on the list." I laughed nervously. That can't be. I'm Amaris, her sister. I literally paid for this. I said louder than I meant. The guard looked at me carefully. The woman stayed calm and said, "I have checked the list. You are not here. You need to step aside." My blood ran cold. "No, can you call Fina or Kaylin for me?" I asked, my voice shaking. She said, "We are under strict instructions not to disturb the bride and groom." I caught a glimpse inside. Fina was there laughing, wearing her white dress. She was only a few steps away from me. Panic rose like a wave in my chest. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. No answer. I tried Kaylin's phone. Still nothing. People were starting to stare at me. I felt like I was being laughed at silently. I had flown across the country and spent all this money, and now I wasn't even allowed to be there. I don't know how I did it, but I turned around and walked away. I wanted to run inside and grab Fina and demand an explanation. But my legs moved on their own. I walked through the long, fancy hallways, past smiling guests and out into the cold aspen night. Snow was falling. Tiny, perfect flakes melted on my cheeks. I was completely alone. I didn't cry. I just got into a taxi and told the driver to take me back to the airport. I felt like my promise to Mom had broken into a million pieces. My heart felt heavy and hollow. The flight back to Seattle was long. I stared out the window at the dark sky and thought about what had happened. I tried to find a reason. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone forgot to put my name on the list. But deep down I knew it was not a mistake. When I landed, I felt gray and tired, like a zombie walking through the airport. I picked up my luggage and, out of habit, checked my phone. That is when I saw an email from my bank. The subject line said, "Fraud alert. Unusual activity on your joint account." The joint account? The one Fina and I had set up together for the wedding? The one I had been putting money into for months? The alert said there was a $2,000 charge at a men's clothing store in Miami. Miami? Not Aspen? Not for the wedding? My stomach flipped. Suddenly, everything clicked in my head. The confusion and sadness started to burn away, replaced by a sharp, cold feeling of understanding. For the first time, I looked at Fina not as my little sister but as someone I did not really know. I felt hurt, angry, and betrayed. I logged into our joint bank account. I had never done this before. My job was always simple: deposit the money for the wedding. Fina's job was supposed to be to spend it on the wedding. I trusted her completely. Now that trust felt like the silliest, most naive mistake of my life. The account history appeared on my screen. There were the charges I expected. The deposit for the Aspen resort, the caterer, the florist. But mixed in between them were things that made no sense. A weekend spa trip for 2 people, expensive shopping at online stores, and 3 round-trip tickets to Miami booked 2 months ago. My breath hitched. I sat in my small apartment staring at the screen. The anger, sadness, and betrayal hit me all at once. I had given Fina everything, my time, my energy, and all the money I had saved. And she had used it for herself, for trips, clothes, and fun, without thinking about the wedding at all. My heart felt like it had been smashed into pieces. I remembered the necklace from Mom. It sat in my bag on the table, shining in the small light of my apartment. It was meant to be a symbol of love, family, and care. And now, that symbol felt heavy in my hands because it was tied to someone who had broken my trust. I realized something important. I had spent my whole life protecting Fina, helping her, fixing her mistakes. And she had taken advantage of that. Maybe I had always been too kind, too trusting. Maybe I had let love blind me to the truth. I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also sadness, confusion, and disappointment. I remembered every time I had worked late nights, given her money, or made sacrifices. All of it seemed invisible now, taken for granted. And yet, I also felt a tiny spark of strength. I knew I had done the right thing by trying to help her. I had loved her with all my heart. And now I had to protect myself. I had to decide how to move forward. I had to be careful about trust, about who I let into my life. I looked at the necklace again. Mom would want me to stay strong. Mom had always believed in me. And I would honor her memory, even if Fina had betrayed me. I could not change what had happened, but I could change what I did next. I sat there for a long time, thinking, feeling, and letting the storm of emotions pass through me. It was like a heavy snowstorm inside my chest. And slowly I felt a small sense of clarity. I knew I would not forget this. I would be careful. And I would protect myself from being hurt like this again. The sun started to rise outside my window. The gray morning light of Seattle matched my mood perfectly, but I felt a tiny flicker of hope. Life was going to move forward. I had learned a painful lesson about trust, love, and family. But I will survive. I would rebuild. And maybe one day I would find a way to forgive Fina. Not for her sake but for mine. For now, I held the necklace tightly, thinking of Mom, and took a deep breath. I had faced betrayal, sadness, and loss. But I was still standing. And that mattered. The pieces slowly started to fit together in my head like a puzzle. But what I saw was ugly, very ugly, and it made me feel sick inside. I held my stomach with my hands and I could feel it twisting and turning. This was not just about a party or even about fun things. It was about the money, all of it, and what had been stolen from me. My apartment, which used to feel safe and calm, suddenly felt like a cage. The walls seemed smaller. The air seemed heavier. I could not sleep. My mind was racing, jumping from one thought to the next. I could not eat. Even the food I loved, the sandwiches and the fruit I usually enjoyed, tasted like nothing. For 2 whole days my world became very small. It shrank down to the glow of my laptop screen, the quiet rustle of printed papers, and the bitter taste of old coffee that had been sitting on my counter far too long. I did not leave my apartment. I did not call anyone. I became a detective in the crime of my own life, and the main suspect, the one I had to investigate, was my own sister. I started by printing every single bank statement from our joint account, going back a full year. The printer made a steady rattling noise, and the pages stacked higher and higher on the kitchen table. Soon the pile of papers became almost taller than my laptop. I looked at it and felt a strange mix of fear and anger. This was a monument, I thought, a monument to my own mistake for trusting her so much. Then I began checking each charge, carefully comparing them with the invoices and receipts my sister Fina had sent me over the months. She always sent them with a smiley face or a cheerful message. "Love you," she would write. But those smiles were lies. They were pretend smiles that covered what she had really been doing. I pulled up one invoice that she had sent for a photographer. It looked sloppy, like something she could have made in just 10 minutes. I looked online for the photographer's business, but nothing came up. No website. No social media. No reviews. Nothing. But the $5,000 had actually gone straight into her bank account. My blood ran cold and my hands shook. I kept looking. It was a pattern that repeated itself again and again. A $7,000 deposit for a wedding venue? Not real. It had gone toward a luxury car she had bought for herself. $2,000 for flowers? Actually spent at a designer handbag store. She had not even tried to hide it very well. Probably because she never imagined I would look. Why would I? I was always the good sister, the one who did what she was asked. The reliable amorous, the human ATM who only ever gave money. I thought about everything I had done for her. The spa trips for 2, the flights to Miami, the clothes she wore, the expensive gifts. All of it had been paid with my sweat and sacrifice. I remembered the extra projects I had taken on at work. The nights I had stayed awake until 3 a.m. to finish something on time. Also, she could have her perfect day. But now I realized it had not been about the wedding at all. It had been about her perfect life, a life where she never had to pay for anything herself. Then the anger came, sudden and sharp, like a flame that burned away all my sadness and grief. It was not just that she had stolen money from me. It was that she had used me, my love, my loyalty, my promise to our mother, to make me help her steal from me. She had weaponized my trust. I created a spreadsheet. Felt like the most amorous thing to do. I made 2 columns. One for the real wedding expenses and one for Fina's secret personal money. I went through every single transaction, checking carefully, slowly, one by one. The numbers at the bottom of each column were stark and cruel. Of the $50,000 I had given her, only about $25,000 had actually gone to the wedding. The other $25,000 she had taken for herself. I guess some of it had gone to Kaylin, her boyfriend. Then I saw the final charge from just 3 days ago. It was $500 to a company called Guest List Management. She had paid a company using my money to make sure my name was not on the guest list. The thought made me feel sick to my stomach. She had not forgotten about me. She had not made a mistake. She had planned this to hurt me. If I had been there at the wedding, I might have asked questions. I might have spoken to the vendors. Her whole house of lies could have fallen apart. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the glowing spreadsheet on my screen. It was like a confession written in numbers. This was not my sister anymore. This was someone dangerous. Someone who had been grooming me, preparing me to be a mark for years. Just as I was staring at the last terrifying numbers, my phone buzzed. It was a number I did not recognize at first, but the Arizona area code felt familiar. I answered, my voice shaking. "Hello," I said. "Amaris, it's your Aunt Beatrice," said the voice on the other end. Relief washed over me. Aunt Beatrice was my mom's older sister, a retired financial advisor who lived in Phoenix. She was smart, serious, and the only person in the family who had ever seen through Fina's charm. We weren't very close, but she always sent a card for my birthday. "Aunt Beatrice, hi," I said, my voice cracking. "I'm not calling to chat, honey," she said, her voice firm. "I heard about the wedding. A friend of a friend told me you weren't there." I swallowed hard. "Yes. There was a mix-up with the list," I said, unsure what to say. She gave a short, dry laugh. "Amaris, stop. There was no mix-up. Your sister is a con artist, and it's about time you knew the whole truth." I felt my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" I asked. She explained. "I do a little consulting on the side to keep my mind sharp. A few months ago, a colleague in Colorado asked me to look into a high-end fashion boutique in Aspen. It was supposed to be a new business looking for investors. The business plan was a mess, full of fluff and no real information. I told him to stay far away. The name of the owner? Your sister." The room started spinning. "The boutique? She never mentioned it to me." "Of course she didn't." Beatrice snapped. "It failed from the start. He sank a fortune into it. Your fortune, I'm guessing. And a lot more borrowed from very dangerous people." I felt sick. Trips to Miami. Designer clothes. All of it was not for fun. She was trying to build a fake image, a brand for a failing business. She was throwing good money after bad, trying desperately to stay afloat. "She's in over her head," Beatrice said. Her voice softened slightly. "And the people she borrowed from are losing patience. They're not going to take her to court. They'll just show up at her door." The thought of him terrified me. This was not just a family betrayal anymore. It was dangerous. Fina had not only been greedy, she had been reckless. And she had dragged all of us into the dangerous mess she created. "Thank you for telling me," I whispered, my mind spinning. "Listen, Amaris," Beatrice said firmly. "You're the fixer. You're going to want to rush in and save her. Do not. You will not save her. You will only sink with her. He made this mess. It's hers to clean up." I hung up the phone, shaking. Beatrice was right. My first instinct had been to wire Fina all the money I had left to protect her. But protect her from what? From the consequences of her own bad choices? The girl I promised to protect no longer existed. In her place was a stranger, a thief, a liar. I was done being her safety net. For a week I felt frozen. I blocked Fina's number, but not before she left a string of frantic voicemails. First she was confused. "Amaris, where are you? Everyone is asking about you." Then angry. "It's rude of you not to show up. You ruined my day." And finally blaming me. "I can't believe you'd be so selfish." Each message was full of gaslighting, and with every word the last bit of love I had for her disappeared. I went to work. I paid my bills. I tried to act normal. But knowing about the dangerous money she owed, the loan sharks my aunt warned about, made my stomach ache every day. My aunt's words stayed in my mind. He made this mess. It is hers to clean up. Exactly 1 week after the wedding, my phone rang again. The number was from Colorado. My stomach clenched. It was Fina. Her voice was completely different from usual. Gone was her confident, charming tone. Now it was high-pitched, shaky, panicked. "Amaris. Thank God. I've been trying to call you," she sobbed. I said nothing. I just listened in my kitchen as her perfect world crumbled. The resort, the venue, they were calling nonstop. They said the final payment never went through. "They're threatening to sue us, Amaris. Did you send the money? Why didn't you send the final payment?" The audacity made my blood boil. She had stolen over $25,000 from me, publicly humiliated me, lied to me for over a year, and now she was screaming at me for not giving her more money. Then something inside me changed. All the hurt, all the anger, all the fear combined into a single icy calm. I knew exactly what I had to do. I let her finish ranting, her voice cracking as she described the lawsuit in shame and horror. I waited until she paused, taking a desperate breath. Then I spoke. My voice was quiet, steady, and completely calm. "Oh, is that right?" I said. The line was silent for a moment. She was surprised by my lack of sympathy. "Amaris, are you listening to me?" she screamed. "They're going to ruin us." "I'm listening," I said, cold and clear. "And I'm so sorry to hear that, Fina. But I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." "What do you mean?" she demanded. Then I said the words I had been planning for a week. Slowly, clearly. "I'm sorry. Payments are only for people on the list." I heard her gasp. For the first time she was speechless. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't let her cry, scream, or lie. I pressed the red button and ended the call. Then I erased her from my financial life. I called the bank and closed the joint account. I got a new debit card. I blocked her new number and Kaylin's number too. It felt painful, like a surgery, but it was necessary to save myself. The fallout was immediate. Emails bounced. Calls went unanswered. The digital connection that had bound us vanished like smoke. And for the first time in a long time I felt free. I was done being her safety net. I was done being her helper. I was done being her victim. And I was finally, irrevocably done. Cut off from my money and my sympathy, Fina turned to the only weapon she had left, telling everyone what she wanted them to think. She wrote a very long post on Facebook. It was full of lies, but she made it sound like the truth. In her story I was the bad one. She said I was jealous and mean, and that I had taken all the money for her wedding at the last minute, leaving her and her new husband with nothing. She said she was the poor, sad victim, and that I had betrayed her when she should have been able to trust me. She even posted a picture of herself with tears in her eyes, holding her face like she was very sad. It worked. My phone started ringing and buzzing all the time. Messages came from relatives and friends we both knew. "How could you do that to your sister?" they asked. "Family is supposed to be there for each other. You are heartless." Every message hurt me like a knife. She wasn't just stealing money, she was trying to make everyone hate me so she could control the story. It was like she had built a trap and I had fallen right into it. I wanted to scream and show everyone the bank statements and proof, but I knew it would not help. Fighting back would only make me sink into the mess she liked. So I turned off my account and tried to calm down. I sat on my bed, hugged my knees, and tried to breathe slowly. It felt like the walls were closing in, like everyone I knew had turned against me. 2 days later there was a knock at my door. I almost didn't answer because I didn't want to see anyone. But I peeked through the little peephole and I couldn't believe my eyes. Kaylin was standing there. He looked like a ghost. His face was very pale and his eyes were red, as if he had been crying for many nights. He had lost a lot of weight. He looked 10 years older than just a few weeks ago. I took a deep breath and slowly opened the door. "Amaris," he whispered in a soft, broken voice. I am so sorry." I crossed my arms and stared at him. "Sorry for what, Kaylin? For stealing? For lying? Or for making everyone hate me?" He flinched and looked down at his shoes. "All of it," he said quietly. "Can I come in for just 5 minutes?" I let him in, but I didn't offer him a chair. We stood awkwardly in my small entryway. He couldn't meet my eyes. He shuffled his feet nervously and fidgeted with his hands. "I saw the bank records," he mumbled. "After you closed the account she showed them to me, trying to prove that you had stolen money. But I saw the dates, the stores, the trips. I knew Amaris, I knew she was lying." I asked, shocked. "And you didn't know before? You never wondered where the money for your fancy clothes and weekend trips was coming from?" He finally looked at me and his face crumpled. "I knew she was spending too much. I knew it was wrong. But I liked it. I liked the lifestyle. I let it happen. I am as guilty as she is." It was a weak and sad confession, but it was the first honest thing I had heard from either of them in over a year. I could feel my heart beating fast. I was angry at him, yes, but I also felt a little relieved. At least now I knew the truth. "She took you off the list," he continued, tears in his eyes. "She did it the night before. She said she was scared you'd make a scene or talk to the people who were helping with the wedding. She was cruel, Amaris, and I let her do it." He finally broke down and covered his face with his hands. "I am so sorry. I came to tell you. I am leaving her. And I need to know about Vespra. My daughter doesn't deserve this." Hearing my 4-year-old niece's name hit me hard. Sweet little Vespera was stuck in the middle of her parents' greed. She had done nothing wrong, but she was caught in the mess that grown-ups had made. For the first time I felt my cold anger soften. I looked at Kalen. He was weak, yes, but he loved his daughter. And in that moment I knew what I had to do. I will not give Leora another dime, I said firmly. She's on her own. You will deal with the debts and the lawsuit yourself. Kalen wiped his eyes and nodded. I understand. But I will not abandon Vespera. I went to my desk and wrote down the phone number of my financial advisor. I am going to set up a trust fund for her education and future. Nobody will touch it until she is 18. Only I will have access. I also gave him the card of a good divorce lawyer. Save yourself, Kalen, and save your daughter. Your wife, she is lost. He left without saying another word. A few months later, I heard from Aunt Beatrice that Kalen and Leora had divorced. Leora, chased by creditors and struggling with bad money choices, had to declare bankruptcy. She lost her car, her designer bags, and everything else. She lived in a tiny apartment and worked a retail job. Her rich friends disappeared as soon as the money ran out. She no longer had the glamorous life she had pretended to have. As for me, I took the money I had left, the money that was supposed to be for a house, and bought a plane ticket. I traveled alone through Italy for a month. It was the first real vacation I had ever taken as an adult. I ate pasta and pizza, drank fruit juice and a little wine when I felt like it, and walked through streets that were hundreds of years old. Every corner had stories of the past. I climbed up hills and looked over cities with red rooftops and sparkling rivers. I felt the heavy weight of that broken promise leaving me with every step. I spent time thinking and writing in a little notebook I brought with me. I wrote about how I felt and what I wanted my life to be. I met kind people in small cafes, laughed with strangers who were tourists like me, and even made a few friends who I still keep in touch with. I visited museums filled with old paintings and sculptures, imagining the lives of people who lived centuries ago. I walked through gardens full of flowers and smelled the fresh air. For the first time I felt free. I had done everything I could for my sister and she had thrown it all back in my face. I chose to protect myself and my niece, but that also meant watching my sister's world fall apart. Even though it hurt to see her fail, I knew I had made the right choice. Vespera, my little niece, would have a better life. She would grow up safe and loved, with money for school and all the things she needed, even if her mother could not take care of her. I thought about her playing in the park, laughing and running around without any worries. That thought made me smile, and I knew it was worth everything I had done. During my travels, I learned to enjoy small things. The taste of fresh bread in a small Italian bakery, the warm sunlight on my face, the sound of church bells ringing across a town square. I even tried speaking Italian to people, stumbling over the words but laughing at myself. Every day felt like a new adventure, a new chance to feel happy again. By the time I returned home, I felt stronger. I had faced betrayal, lies, and heartbreak, but I had survived. I had protected the one person who truly needed me, and I had learned to take care of myself too. Life was not perfect, but it was mine. I had control of my own story now, and that made all the difference. Looking back, I realized something important. Sometimes people you love can hurt you, but that does not mean you should let them destroy everything. Protecting yourself and the innocent people around you is more important than trying to win against someone who does not care about the truth. I had learned to forgive in my own way, not for them but for me. I had learned to let go of the anger that weighed me down and focus on the things that truly mattered. Love, family, and life itself.